The first snowflake hit my windshield like a warning
We'll
shot.
get to it as soon as we can,
Soft
sir.
and innocent, but I knew what it meant. A
Get
storm
moving
was
now.
coming.
We need to clear
Not just
this
the
road
kind that
immediately.
buries streets and freezes engines. The kind that exposes who really controls a neighborhood and who they think is disposable. And if you stay with me until the end of this story, you'll understand how one arrogant HOA officer and one foolish ban changed an entire community forever. I've plowed snow for 20 years, not as a hobby, not as a side hustle, as a lifeline. When storms hit, people don't think about politics or rules or power. They think about hospitals, grocery stores, and getting their kids to school. My snowplow wasn't just a truck, it was the artery that kept the neighborhood alive. My name is Daniel, and in our city, people knew me as the man who shows up when everyone else stays home. But to the HOA, I was a problem. The first time I met him, I didn't even know he would become my enemy. He stood at the corner with Maple Crest Drive like he owned the asphalt itself, 50-plus years old, short brown hair cut too tight, face lined with years of control and bitterness. His eyes were sharp, not curious, calculating. He wore a black formal jacket even in the cold, pressed trousers, and a stiff posture that screamed, "I make rules." His name was Randall, HOA Officer Randall. He didn't wave, he didn't nod. He raised his hand like a traffic cop and motioned me to stop my plow. I rolled down the window. "Can I help you?" I asked calmly. "You are not authorized to be here," he said, voice clipped and cold. "I've plowed this street for 3 winters. Residents hired me." "They didn't have the authority to do that," he snapped. "The HOA controls all contracted services on HOA roads." I smiled, not because it was funny, because I knew what came next. "I'm not here to cause problems," I said. "I just clear snow. People need to get to work." Randall stepped closer, peering into my cab like he was searching for something illegal. "You will leave now." That was the first shot, and I let it pass, for now. But here's the hook, the moment that should make you sit forward. 3 days later, after the biggest storm of the year hit, the HOA officially banned my snowplow from their streets. Not suspended, not restricted, banned. And that decision would cost them everything. The letter came by email. "You are hereby prohibited from operating any snow removal equipment on HOA-managed roadways within Maple Crest. No warning, no meeting, just power." And that's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. But they forgot one thing. They needed me far more than I needed them. The storm that followed was biblical. Snow piled up like concrete. Roads vanished. Cars disappeared. Ambulances struggled. And every single private contractor the HOA had on their list was booked solid, understaffed, or stuck. I got calls. Dozens. Residents begging. "I'll pay double. My mother needs dialysis. I have to get to the hospital." And every time, I looked at that email, and I didn't go. Because when someone draws a line in the snow and dares you to cross it, sometimes the smartest revenge is letting them freeze behind it. And that's when Randall realized he had made a catastrophic mistake. The first HOA emergency meeting was chaos. Plows couldn't get in, trucks couldn't get out, food deliveries stopped, workers couldn't reach their jobs, and every camera in the neighborhood pointed at the same blocked street. They didn't need a snowplow anymore. They needed a miracle. Randall called me. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. Finally, I answered. "Daniel," he said, his voice no longer sharp but tight, "we need to talk." "You banned me," I replied calmly. "We need you back," he snapped. "No," I said. Silence. "Name your price," he said. I leaned back in my seat, watching the snowfall. It was never about money. Then I hung up. And that's when the real game began. Because you see, I'm not just a plow driver. I'm a negotiator, a charismatic one. I know how to make people choose the right thing when the wrong thing hurts enough. Residents started calling, then business owners, then even other HOA members. And one by one, I told them the truth. You were fine when I worked for you. Randall wasn't. The pressure built. Randall's control cracked, and the streets stayed buried. But this story doesn't end with a plow. It ends with power shifting. And I'll tell you how, but only if you're still here, because the storm was just beginning.
The snow didn't just fall that night. It swallowed Maple Crest whole. By dawn, the neighborhood looked like a frozen graveyard. Cars sat half-buried like abandoned relics. Driveways disappeared. Even the tall, proud entrance sign of the HOA was now just a crooked slab peeking out of a white mountain, like a warning no one had listened to. And in the middle of all that silence, the phones started ringing. Not just mine. Every resident who had ever taken Randall's side was suddenly desperate. Nurses, delivery drivers, parents with kids stuck at home, and every call that came in added one more crack to the armor Randall had spent years building. Because here's the truth people never talk about. HOAs only feel powerful when everything is normal. Snow destroys normal. At 7:12 a.m., Randall called again. I didn't answer. At 7:14, he texted, "Daniel, this is an emergency. You are putting lives at risk." I stared at the message, the hypocrisy almost laughable. Putting lives at risk? No, Randall, you did that the moment you banned the only plow that could reach those streets. I typed back one line. You have my number. You had my service. You chose to lose both. Then I shut off my phone. Let me pull you back for a second, because this is where the hook tightens. They thought banning my snowplow meant I was powerless, but what they didn't understand was that power doesn't come from the truck. It comes from who controls access. By noon, Maple Crest was gridlocked. People couldn't leave. Delivery trucks were stuck at the entrance. Even a school bus had to turn around because the roads were too deep to drive through. That's when I saw Randall again. He was at the HOA entrance, standing in the middle of the snow like a general who had lost his army. His black formal jacket was dusted with white flakes. His stiff posture had sagged, but his eyes still sharp, still angry. When he saw my truck parked across the street, not moving, his face went red. He marched over. "You think this is funny?" he shouted. I stepped out slowly, boots crunching in the snow, my calm smile cutting deeper than any insult. "No," I said. "I think it's educational." "You are violating HOA rules." "No," I replied. "I am respecting them. You banned me from your streets. I'm not touching them." His jaw tightened. "You're enjoying this." "I'm learning who you really are," I said softly. "And I think the residents are too." That hit him harder than he expected, because behind him, people were watching. Residents wrapped in coats, drivers stuck in cars, neighbors who had once nodded politely to Randall now stared at him like he was the reason they were trapped. The storm had exposed something, and it wasn't just the roads. One woman stepped forward. "My husband has chemo today," she said. "You said everything was under control." Randall didn't answer. Another man yelled, "I'm missing work. Who's paying for this?" Still nothing. And suddenly all that authority he wore like a uniform started melting in the snow. That was my second hook. When people stop believing in your power, you don't have any. Randall tried to save face. "We are working on it," he barked. "Private contractors are on the way." But they weren't. I knew because I'd already talked to them. That's the part he didn't see coming. See, I've been in this business a long time. I know every plow driver in this city. When I told them what Randall had done, banned me after residents hired me, something happened. They didn't like it. Because if an HOA could do it to me, they could do it to any of them. So when Randall called them, they were suddenly all unavailable. The neighborhood wasn't just snowed in, it was isolated, and he had no idea how deep the hole he dug really was. He leaned toward me, lowering his voice. "You end this now," he said. "Get your truck and start plowing." I smiled. "You first."
First what? Admit you were wrong. His eyes flashed with rage. I don't apologize to contractors. Then you don't get roads, I replied. The wind howled between us, and that's when he realized something terrifying. He had no leverage, and I had all of it. But the real revenge was still ahead, because when a man who lives on control loses it, he makes mistakes. And Randall was about to make the biggest one of his life.
The moment Randall lost control, he did what every desperate man does when his authority starts slipping. He tried to bully it back. By late afternoon, HOA emails started flying out to every resident in Maple Crest. Long, cold messages full of legal language and threats, fines, violations, unauthorized service interference. He was trying to scare people into silence, into submission, into believing this was all somehow their fault. But Snow doesn't care about emails, and neither do angry neighbors who can't leave their own driveways. That's when the third hook hit. Power collapses fastest when the people you rule realize they outnumber you. I was sitting in my truck watching the chaos unfold through the windshield when my phone buzzed. It wasn't Randall. It was Linda. She lived 3 houses down from the entrance, a retired school teacher with a voice that could quiet a room full of screaming kids. She had always paid me directly for plowing, and Randall hated that. "Daniel," she said softly, "we're done with him." That was all I needed to hear. Within an hour, residents had organized themselves, not on HOA boards, not in meetings, in reality. They walked through knee-deep snow to talk to each other. They shared stories, missed shifts, missed doctor appointments, frozen pipes, sick kids. And in every story, one name kept coming up: Randall. He had ruled that neighborhood like a petty king for years, hiding behind bylaws and formal jackets. But now, he was just a man standing in front of a disaster he created. And that's when I made my move. Not with the truck, with words. I walked right into the middle of the crowd gathered near the entrance. They turned to me. "Daniel, can you help us?" someone asked. "I can, but only if you're ready to change something." They leaned in. "Randall doesn't own these streets. You do. You live here. You pay for them. You decide who serves you." A murmur ran through the crowd. "But he banned you," someone said. "He tried," I replied, "but a ban is only powerful if people obey it." That was the spark. Someone shouted, "Then unban him!" Another yelled, "Yeah, we hired him." The snowstorm had done what years of HOA meetings never could. It had united them. Randall came storming out of the HOA office when you heard the noise, his dark jacket flapping in the wind, face tight with fury. "What is this?" he barked. Linda stepped forward. "This is us, taking back our neighborhood." "You don't have the authority," he shouted. She didn't even blink. "We do. We live here." And for the first time since I met him, Randall looked small. That was the fourth hook. Because when people stop being afraid, tyrants have nothing left. But I still didn't plow. Not yet. Because revenge isn't just about winning. It's about making sure the other side knows exactly why they lost. And Randall was about to learn. The snow had been falling for nearly 48 hours straight. But the coldest thing in Maple Crest wasn't the weather anymore. It was the silence that followed when everyone finally turned on Randall. He stood there in front of the HOA office, black jacket stiff with frost, piercing eyes darting from face to face. For the first time in his career, no one was listening to him. No one was afraid. And that's when I stepped forward. Slowly, calmly, with the same warm, controlled smile that had helped me negotiate contracts, calm angry clients, and now dismantle a tyrant. "Randall," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you banned me because you thought I was beneath you." His jaw tightened. "You were a contractor," he snapped. "You follow rules." "And I? You forgot something. Rules only work when they serve people, not when they crush them." The crowd murmured in agreement. "You told these residents they didn't have the right to hire me. You told them you owned their streets. But look around. Who's trapped?
Who's suffering? He looked. And that was the moment his power died. A father stepped forward. My kid hasn't eaten all day because I can't get to the store. A nurse raised her hand. I missed my shift at the hospital. Linda spoke again, her voice steady. You did this, Randall, not the snow. You. His lips parted, but no words came out. And that was the final hook, because the most terrifying thing for a man like him is not being yelled at. It's being exposed. I turned back to the crowd. You hired me. You trusted me, and I'm still here. The only thing stopping these streets from being clear is one man's ego. Every eye went back to Randall. You banned him, someone shouted. Fix it, another yelled. He tried to regain control. This is an HOA matter, he barked. No, I said softly. This is a human one. And then something beautiful happened. The HOA board members, the ones who had always quietly nodded behind him, stepped out of the office. One of them spoke. The ban is lifted. Randall spun around. You can't. We just did. Silence. The crowd erupted. But I didn't move yet. I looked directly at Randall. Now, I said, you ask. He stared at me, pride warring with reality. Then, finally, please, he muttered, plow the streets. And that was the victory. Not because he begged, but because he had to. I nodded. Then I climbed back into my truck. The engine roared to life, deep and powerful, echoing through Maple Crest like justice on steel wheels. As I drove forward, snow flying off my blade, the neighborhood came back to life. Roads reappeared, cars moved, people cheered. But Randall? He stood there in the cold, watching the world move without him. That was his punishment. Not a fine, not jail. Irrelevance. And as I cleared the last street, I knew something had changed forever. Because power built on fear melts faster than snow, and respect is the only thing that truly lasts. If you watched until the end, you didn't just hear a story. You witnessed a reckoning.